Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. So today I'm going to talk about how the attempt to make Captain Kirk a bi individual is simply the opening salvo of your quote-unquote progressives and their attempt to destroy Star Trek the original series. Now, before I get into that, I just need to remind everyone that my graphic novel, Thomas Valiant, is going to be up on Indiegogo for another 11 days. We have just smashed through our second stretch goal of 18,000, and the book will now be a fully colored 80-page giant. And I will be posting a new stretch goal, I think, by Monday. If you have any ideas about a new stretch goal, please put that in the comments. This book is my attempt to take all of the great story elements and the traditional hero and to put it down on a page. So if that interests you, the link is in the description for my graphic novel if you wish to go and check it out. So, as I said, it is my assertion that the quote-unquote progressives and their attempt to make Captain Kirk bi is not something that is an end in itself. It is something meant to weaken Star Trek the original series so that they can then continue to go on the offensive and destroy it, so that if you or anyone else wants to actually watch it anymore, you're going to probably be considered a Nazi. Now, to introduce this topic, I'll give you a little bit of backstory about myself. Star Trek, the original series, was, with comic books, what I really cut my teeth on with science fiction and fantasy. I was that person who had Star Trek models hanging from his ceiling, who had a life-size cutout of Mr. Spock in the corner, and I'm sure that's no surprise to most people who listen to my channel and know my preoccupation with logic. I was the person who had Star Trek comics posted on the walls, Star Trek drawings of the Enterprise. I also bought things like The History of the Future when it came out, and I had technical manuals of Star Trek ships, and I bought the Klingon dictionary. So this was something that was heavily part of my life at one point. Now, I have since recognized the progressive nature of that show and all of the other shows successively. By the time it got to Enterprise, I was just done, because the original series was, hey, perhaps you should consider this idea. Whereas by the time you got to Enterprise, it was, hey, this is the idea you should think if you want to be a good person. And I said, done, not listening to this preaching anymore. Done. But I would say, at the same time that I recognize the progressive nature of this show, I still hold it in high regard. And this is part of the point of why this series, according to your quote-unquote progressives, needs to be destroyed. Because this is the dream of Gene Roddenberry. And that is a problem in two different ways. Number one, in the fact that these progressive people, they always need to destroy their forefathers, because that's the nature of progressivism. Because old progressives are no longer progressive enough, and therefore their old progressivism is actually today seen as something which is oppressive. Now, I ran across this when going through the Marvel podcasts, when in one of them they started to talk about the fact that Margaret Atwood, the writer of The Handmaid's Tale, needs to shut up now. That was their actual statement. They were saying, look, she was good in her time and she helped things progress at one point. And they were saying, we as progressives are still going to use this book in order to promote progressivism. But these statements coming out from the author right now, they're just old progressivism. And she needs to shut up because she doesn't understand how she has been left behind. And this would be the same with J.K. Rowling. This would be the same with any multitude of people who were progressive but are no longer considered this way. And this would include Gene Roddenberry. And the second thing being that for people like myself, people who hold in the highest regard Star Trek the original series, for us, this is unchangeable canon for this universe. There is no getting rid of it. There is no changing it. There is no retconning it. There is no changing the timeline and making it so that these things were there all along. If you're doing that, you're actually creating a new timeline. You're creating a new universe. You're creating a parallel dimension. This still exists within my mind, and I'm sure the mind of most people who take Star Trek the original series to be the best series. And that is in no small way because this is the dream of Gene Roddenberry up there on the screen. And the man has been dead for what? 25 years at least now? There is no changing it. You can't go back and say, oh, Gene Roddenberry is now saying this because it's supposed to be that way. Or we found in his notes that it might point towards this. No, I'm sorry. What's up on the screen, that is the canon for this universe. That is the origin of the entire thing. It is Gene Roddenberry's dream, and there is no getting rid of it. Now, this presents a problem for your quote-unquote progressives. Of course, because, as I said, your old progressives are no longer progressive enough and therefore need to be destroyed. But the other point being that, as the origin of all of this entire universe that people love, this show is something that is idolized to some degree. Even for myself, who now see that there is a whole lot of progressive nonsense going on, even back in that original series, I still hold this show in high regard. But the people who actually still idolize it, it is something that is actually an idol, to some degree, in the minds of people. And the thing about progressivism is that it cannot allow any competition. So it's their idol of progressivism, and that's it. If you have any other, it must be destroyed. And I would say a lot of my subscribers who are either atheists or agnostics probably recognize this fact and recognize that when these progressives are done attacking religion, because most atheists would probably see religion as just an idol of one kind or another, when the progressives, quote unquote progressives, finish with their attack on religion, they're going to attack every other idol as well. Whether it be something large, like devotion to your country through some kind of patriotism, or the idol of some kind of science fiction that you love and have made part of your life. It is going to be destroyed, small or large, when they get around to it. And quite honestly, I would say the majority of Star Trek fans are probably light progressives. People who think, well, I like progressivism here, here, and here, but I don't like these other things. I don't like canceling people. I don't like calling people Nazis. I don't like attacking people. And the thing is that if you are that mindset, I think you're the next target. What I really see happening within the next 4 years is that these people are going to step back from politics. They're going to step back from attacking actual conservatives and people who have that political conservative slant because, well, basically, they're going to allow the federal government to do that for them for the next 4 years. And what they're going to focus on, your everyday quote-unquote progressive, is to attack your light progressive. The people who think, well, I like progressivism, but not the entire thing. Some of it's a little bit out there. They are going to be the target of your SJW woke mob for the next 4 years minimum. So you take all of that and you add to it the following. If you look at the internal consistency of the history of the Federation and your Starfleet and everything else, something very interesting and very funny actually comes up. Now, this hit me recently when I was watching a video about the history of Star Trek. The guy who did it presented it in a very interesting way. He was taking that history from internal mechanisms and looking at it through that. He said the reason why the Federation was constructed to begin with was to promote peace and stability. And so if we look at all the different shows, then you'll see that the Federation and Starfleet changed significantly over time because of different powers that emerged, different wars that were going on, different technologies that were coming to the forefront or being pushed into the background. And so Starfleet at some points looks like just exploration. At some points it's a military. At some point it's a merchant marine. And this is all because of these different forces at play within the universe itself. And so there is this progression. Now, that doesn't change the fact that I hate some of these shows, but it makes a logical sense according to the consistency of the internal history of the Star Trek universe. And I thought to myself after that, hey, wait a second. If that's the way you look at it, and it's a really good way to keep all of this straight, the people who are writing Star Trek Discovery have really painted themselves into a corner. Why? Because Star Trek Discovery happens, I think, after Enterprise, but before Star Trek the original series. And the thing is that within Enterprise, you have this progressivism poking its head up every once in a while, but then in Discovery, you have it just on full display everywhere, and you get things like your LGBTQ agenda going full bore within this show. But by the time you get to Star Trek the original series, it's nowhere to be found. And if you look at that according to the history of the universe, it would show that this progressivism gets wiped away between Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek the original series. As this universe continues to develop and become more technologically advanced and more civilized, guess what they do? They get rid of progressivism. They get rid of this LGBTQ agenda and everything else that you see in Discovery. I don't think the writers actually realize that yet, but somebody's going to realize that pretty soon. So again, as their society progresses and gets better, they get rid of progressivism. So that itself would cause your quote-unquote progressives to say, look, this is a regression to say the least. They would look at all of the characters like Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock and everybody else, and think of them as being Nazis. Why? Because they go backwards according to the timeline. And that alone would cause your quote-unquote progressive to go on a screeching rampage of destruction in itself. Now, I can hear a lot of people probably saying in their minds, a lot of people who are actual Star Trek fans, who I would say the majority are light progressives, saying, well, look, it's probably just in the background. It actually still exists within Star Trek, the original series. It is a continuation from what you see in Discovery. You just don't see it there on the screen. It's always in the background. It's all there. You just can't see it. Now, this presents an even greater problem than if it wasn't actually there. And if you were a light progressive and tried to make this argument to a quote-unquote progressive, your SJW woke person, they will attack you full bore. And here's why. Now, in order to explain this part of progressive ideology, I'm going to have to give you a real-world example of this. Because if I just explain it and say this is what they think, you're probably going to go to yourself, no, they really don't think that. They might put it down on the page or do papers about it, but no one really believes that. No one's really going to act on that. And I'm going to show you, well, yeah, they really act on that. They really believe it. So I'm going to give you a real world example from a couple of years ago to show that, yeah, they actually do this. Yeah, they actually believe this and act on it. So my example is Richard Meyer. He created his Jawbreakers universe and his team of superheroes, and he made them diverse. Why he did this, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it's because that's just the way he originally created them. I think it was possibly because he wanted to extend an olive branch in some way to the mainstream comic producers and say, look, if you want things to be diverse, my heroes are diverse. My entire superhero team is diverse. First of all, you have a black character. Secondly, you have the lead character, who is Silk, and I don't actually know what he is, Caribbean or Filipino or something. I'm not entirely sure, but he's not entirely white. And you have the other character who has no fingers, and therefore he is disabled. And you have the last character who is a gay man. And the last character is the one I'm going to focus on because it's the one that the people in the mainstream comic community focused on. So Richard Meyer made this diverse cast of characters, and he said, look, I even have a gay character, but it's only a part of his backstory. It's only a part of who he is. Now, this is in comparison to the biggest gay character within Marvel at that time, which would be the Iceman character written by Sina Grace, Iceman from the X-Men, which they made gay just all of a sudden, or in universe it looks like Jean Grey just mind-wiped him to make him think that he was. But anyways, you have Sina Grace, who as a person himself is a flaming queen, and he writes this character this way. This character of Bobby Drake, Iceman, is a flaming queen. He's not just gay in the background. He is in every way gay, and he sticks it in everybody's face at every single opportunity. Now, just a quick aside here that I'm sure most of you would probably recognize. Your quote-unquote progressives, they have twisted language so much over the last, at the very least, 50 years in order to get their way, that at this point, when they say something, you can pretty much be assured that they mean the exact opposite. And when they say they want to be anti-racist, what they really mean is they want to be racist. When they say they want to help people of color, it means that they think people of color are less than everybody else and therefore they need help. And when they say they don't like stereotypes, it's because they are the people who use stereotypes the most and use it in real life. They believe that everybody is a stereotype in real life. And they believe this quite specifically about gay men. They think that gay men want to, at every point, act as a flaming queen. That they want to stick it in everybody's face at every moment, at every point. And that is how they all naturally want to act all the time. And, in addition to that, if they don't act this way, it's because they're being oppressed. That is to say, they think that this is the natural way that every one of them wants to act, and since if they don't act this way, it's either the people around them who are oppressing them so that they don't feel comfortable acting this way, or they have internalized this oppression so that they no longer feel comfortable acting this way. So, the actual attack upon Richard Meyer was for creating a gay character that didn't act like a flaming queen, because that is, in their ideology, called erasure. It is an erasing of the fact that he is gay, and it is actually more oppressive to make a character like that, to make it part of his backstory, than if he never included this part of the character at all. So let me repeat that. It is actually more oppressive to create a gay character who doesn't stick it in your face than to not actually include gay characters. This is a progressive point called erasure. So, of course, they attacked Richard Meyer on this point over and over again. I don't even know if Richard completely understood that point or not. Because of this erasure, he is participating in the oppression of these people who he thinks he's actually helping by putting them down on the page. So, let's take all of that real-world example, and apply it to Star Trek. If you have your light progressives saying that, look, all of these progressive things that you see in Discovery, all of this LGBTQ agenda and everything else, it continues on into Star Trek the original series, you just don't see it because it's in the background. When a light progressive will make that argument to a quote-unquote progressive SJW woke person, it is actually saying that this universe is much worse than you actually think it is. It is participating in erasure, and therefore it is actually more oppressive than if it wasn't there at all. So, your progressives are left with only two alternatives. Number one, this in-universe history shows that they got rid of progressivism, and they can't have that, and therefore the series must be destroyed. Or it's there in the background, and this participates in erasure, which is even worse, and therefore they most definitely need to destroy Star Trek the original series. So this is why, when you see these quote-unquote progressive people trying to force Captain Kirk to be bi in the original series, again, this is not an end in itself. This is only part of what they're trying to do to attack the very basis of the fandom of this original series so that they can eventually destroy it. They wish, as their end, to destroy William Shatner as Captain Kirk, to destroy the original series in the minds of Star Trek fans, to destroy the dream of Gene Roddenberry because he's not progressive enough. And the way that they do this is to ensure that if you're one of those people who continue to watch it, who continue to praise it, who continue to use it as canon for this universe, well, you're going to be canceled. Because according to the progressives, you, my friend, are a Nazi. So, if I've given you anything new to think about, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about all this. And don't forget, the link is in the description for my graphic novel. The campaign is open for another 11 days. I will be posting a new stretch goal at the very latest on Monday. And if you wish to bring about that stretch goal, if you wish your money to go towards making a better product so that you get even more with your order, you will have to order within the next 11 days. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.